Hello, gentlemen in the back. Welcome. All the guys are welcome. Can the ladies cheer for themselves? Can we hear the ladies cheer for themselves? Welcome. You got to be excited. This is very exciting. This is the first time in history, landscape history, I'm sure. So, welcome today. I've wanted for several years to have something for the ladies because everybody is in a different time and season in their lives, and all the ladies are at a different place of supporting. And in all the conversations I've had with ladies, there are some that are just so frustrated and they don't want anything to do with the business, and they wish he didn't even have the business, and they think if he would just go get another job, it would be much better for their family, and it's difficult to see long term in those first few years of a business. And so I wanted something for that point of view, and then I heard that. Come on in, Ashley. And then there's the ones that the guy is working in the field, she has a corporate job, or the lady staying at home with the kids. There's just so many areas where we could support them, and I just wanted to have these incredible ladies come. They were a little bit reluctant because sometimes you don't know the impact that you can actually have on people and how much it will help them until you meet up with a group like this that have come to hear what you have to say and be encouraged. So what I had told them is before they came that our goal was to be a guide and encouragement and support to others who are in the stage of growth where we have been. We want to create stepping stones and a path to follow for those coming behind that helps them avoid pitfalls and mistakes we have made. We don't know, but that one word will spark from our testimonies that will heal a home, create wealth for a business, and avoid breakups. And then I told them, thank you for being willing to be vulnerable, share, and help others from your experiences. So we'll go down the line and I'll have them introduce themselves, their relation, their name, where you're from, and your relationship to the owner, and your role in the business first to start out. And I have a microphone here, and we can just start down the line.
I'm Mindy Cohen. My husband is Kevin Cohen. My role in our business is just to fully support him where I can, and I am a stay-at-home mom. With 4 children.
Don't forget that. I'm Lindsay Ballard, and Corey Ballard is my husband. We live in Des Moines. We have 3 children, 19, 10, and 8, so they keep us busy. I am 100% in the business with Corey every single day, 365 days a year. So it comes with its challenges, but we'll get into that
Yes.
in a bit.
Hey everyone, my name is Amber Connor. My husband is Brian Connor, and we are from Augusta, Georgia. We have 2 small ones. We have a 16-month-old and a 4-year-old, and I am also a business owner, but not in Augusta Lawn Care.
My name is Megan Turner. My husband is Kyle Turner, and we live in Madison, Alabama. I am a cybersecurity systems engineer for the military. My involvement in the business is anything after dark, essentially all like back end. So we have 3 fur babies, and that is it.
My name is Brittany Breeden. Ryan Payne is my boyfriend, and we have the Rockport and Corpus Christi locations. And I'm the office manager for our companies for both locations. So we do everything in-house, like our calls, scheduling. So we're our own little command center.
Yes, so you can see they're very diverse, and so we're going to get into some questions that I'll randomly ask each one of them, and then they'll give their information to you, and I trust it'll be a blessing. So I'll ask Amber, do you have something outside the business that he supports you in?
Yes, I do. So back home, I have a bakery. It's called Sinless Sweets Bakery, and we are actually a healthy bakery. So we take all of your favorite breakfast and dessert items, and we make the healthy version of them. So our stuff is keto, low carb, sugar-free, gluten-free, and then we also offer dairy-free and vegan options. But my husband is actually the one who really pushed me on this endeavor to open up my own business. I always thought he was kind of crazy for having a business. I was like, that's a lot going on. And then after I got into business, there have been many days when I look at him and I'm like, you didn't tell me it was going to be this hard. But yeah, he fully supports me in this business, and if it wasn't for him, it probably wouldn't be where we are today, honestly.
Fantastic. How about you?
I'm trying to think. That was a hard one for me because I feel like he supports me obviously in our home life. It hasn't always been that way. Okay, I should probably go back. So I'm in Ballard Equipment with him 100%. So I know that you guys were all upstairs. He talked about Perficut. Mostly that's what he's talked about. We have Ballard Equipment, which we sell lawn care accessories for professionals like you. And so it's been about 4 or 5 years ago he came to me. The business has been around for 20 years and it's had its ups and downs. He'd do trade shows or whatever. He came to me 4 or 5 years ago and I was working at Perficut alongside him there, and crazy amount of hours there both of us were putting in, and he said, we need to do something with Ballard. We either need to shut it down or we really need to just dive into it. And I drug my feet because it was scary for me. At Perficut, I had friends there that felt like family. From the videos, you guys can tell we're all super close, and so he's pulling me out of that environment to just the two of us, right? And we went all in. So that was 4 or 5 years ago, and since then, we've just been through a lot. We had little kids when we really dug into this and was working 70 and 80 hours a week. We missed time with our children. And that's what business does to you sometimes. But as a mother, I have a lot of regrets. Now our life today is way different, and we get to spend all the time with our kids, and we provide them with a great lifestyle. And I'm super proud of that, but it's been a struggle over the years. And so today he's just different. He talked about putting his phone down. We have hired great people to put around us to really be able to be gone even this week, or to be here this weekend. We know that they're handling everything back home for us. So I don't really have anything outside the business besides our family. It's kind of like family work, but he is there to support me with the kids now, which has not always been the case. So I'm super thankful for that. So
I see. How about you, Mindy?
No, I don't have anything outside the business that he supports me in, but I know that if I ever endeavored into something, I don't question that Kevin would give me 110%.
Fantastic. Thank you. Megan?
So before I transitioned into cybersecurity and systems engineering for the government, I was a high school geometry teacher. And I was like, I don't feel like I have reached my full capacity. So I went back, got my master's degree, taught during the day, went to school at night, and then COVID happened. Nobody was hiring. I was like, well, I guess I'll just continue to teach. And he said, no, you need to keep looking. And so we lived in Tupelo, Mississippi. I had a job opportunity in Huntsville. He had a lawn care company that was very successful for 7 years. So his support is that he sold his business. We moved to a totally different state where we knew no one, and he has grown his business from zero. And so that was an amazing support. And I really appreciate the fact that he was like, we're in this together. I want you to be successful because we can be successful together.
Love it. Brittany?
At the moment, I don't have anything that he supports me in. Most of our time is just spent focused on growing our business since we both work together. So if I had something, he would definitely support me in it, but at the moment, we don't.
Excellent. Well, you can keep the microphone there. I'll start with you on this one. Do you have boundaries for business and personal time?
We're working on it.
Do you feel like you need them?
Sometimes, yes. If it was It was a stressful day for sure. So we try to separate work from business. Sunday is our day that we absolutely don't do anything with the company unless, our building is on fire or something. Then, we have to take care of that. So we've tried, when we come home, to try to not talk about the business. But if he's gone doing estimates all day and I don't see him, there's some things that happen with him that he wants to tell me about, or I'm filling him in on what happened with the office that day. So it's a work in progress.
So it's not a point of contention?
No.
Mostly. Okay. Megan?
I second that. We are working on that. Because as a school teacher, you're like, oh, perfect. Your time off is my busiest time of the year. And I was like, got it. Okay. So I'm out here. It's 105 degrees weather. I'm crawling on my hands and knees, putting out pine straw, pulling weeds. And I was like, oh, there's poison ivy. Oh my gosh, I'm allergic. I didn't even know. But when we moved to Huntsville, it was really hard for me to tell Kyle no, because as a wife, you want to be there to support your husband. But here's the deal. He depends on you, yes, but he also has to grow himself and learn how to delegate his time to his employees as opposed to his spouse, because he knows that I'll always be there for him. So that was really a challenge for me, like, no, I can't help you this weekend. He's like, what? I was like, well, let me just tell you why. Because if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to hire people, and there's going to be ups and downs. So that's how
Good job.
we're working
Good
on it.
advice.
Yeah, this is actually something that we are also working on. I guess it's probably something you always work on, right? Like whenever you have the balance of family life and work life, right? And finding that balance.
Is it something that you actually think you need to work on?
Yeah, I think it's always something to improve on, right? You can always improve on it. With both of us owning businesses, and two young ones, it's hard for us to just to have a conversation at home without hearing mom, dad, and us trying to fill each other in. I think we call each other more during the day and find out about each other's day than we can at home. Because then once we get home, it's all about our 16-month-old and our 4-year-old. And as business owners, trying to find, the balance of husband and wife and keeping that connection and making sure that your marriage is strong, and then having both businesses and then having kids. So for me, this year, opening the business, it's all about balance. And the one thing, I always want to be a good wife. I always want to be a good mom. I want to be a good business owner, and going every day without feeling like I'm failing at some part of that. Yes. So I think for me, it's about balance and trying to find the balance of managing all of those things without feeling like I'm being pulled more so in one direction than the other. So yeah, it's definitely something that we've worked on and continue to work on. And I think in a marriage and in boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, I feel like finding that time together where you can understand each other and you have the connection of a business, but also having that time where you don't talk about business and you focus strictly on your marriage and your kids. But yeah, the balance is hard.
Yes.
We have certainly grown a lot in this area. We can still work on it. When that's all you do together all day long, and then you come home and our business never stops. We're getting orders all night long. There's customer service issues. We've done a better job about putting our phones down and being able to focus on our children. At this point in our life, it has, like I said, it's not always been like that. And I think we both have a lot of guilt. But there was a breaking moment about 2 years ago. Corey's job has always been remote. Like, he can work from his phone wherever he goes. He goes to the gym at 9 o'clock in the morning, or I'm at the office. I have to be at my desk all day long, right? So there was some resentment that happened there. And we just try and work through those things. There was, like I said, a breaking moment. He came down, I think it was Mother's Day, actually. And those things your kids always fill out about you, like on Mother's Day. What's your mom good at? Working. What does your mom do in her spare time? Work. And then it was Mother's Day, and that was happening again. And he came down at that moment, and he's like, I think I'm going to go on a motorcycle ride next week. You know, didn't ask me, kind of told me that he was going, and it was a Sunday, Mother's Day, and I'm working at the computer all day long, not spending time with my family, and I just started sobbing, and I just lost it. And, you know, and he, at that moment, was trying to understand where I was coming from, and he's like, I know we work hard now, it's not always going to be like this. He's like, we have nice things, and I'm like, I understand we have nice things, but, you know, that's not what is important to me. And at the end of the day, if you can't enjoy those nice things because you're working nonstop and not doing the things that really, that you love, like I just want to spend time with my family and my children, it was just really hard. And so at that moment, he said, we got to hire someone. We need to get you support. And so we did hire someone. And ever since then, we've kind of just changed our attitude. You know, if we take home less money because we have to pay someone else to help us, it saved our marriage, it saved our business, it saved, you know, it saved everything. So today our life is much different. We're able to put our phones down because we have surrounded ourselves with great people that support us, believe in us, love working for us. So.
Thank you.
And for us, I would say that what came to mind when I read that question was keeping, again, home life, and business, and knowing that there's time for both of them can come together, but we must focus on one or the other when that time is
So you have
right.
a specific time,
Right.
a day of the week,
And so-
or a time in the evening?
Yes, and so for Kevin and I, the evenings, we try to focus on children. Let the day doings be the day doings, but the evening, try to just focus on home life.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. You guys enjoying this so far? Yes. Good. So how can you tell if the business is doing poorly, and how do you support them in those moments?
Kevin, he is a very open, communicative person. I don't question if there's a problem going on throughout the day, he'll call me, he'll be like, this is, you know, what's going on, let's talk about it. And we will. We'll just kind of all try to just listen to him, give him the best answer that I can, whatever the problem is, solution, and we'll just kind of work through the problems together throughout that day. And that's how I feel like I can support him.
Well, I do the books, so I see the P&L. So he doesn't see the P&L unless I provide it to him. He's not a details guy, so he likes his just, you know, monthly reports. If something's going crazy, then I can address it with him. But I think we do a really good job about supporting each other. We are very open with our team too. You know, so when we're having tough months and we're not, like, you know, people aren't spending money right now, so our sales are down a little bit. We share that information with our team. We feel like we're a family and we can all support each other. And then our team members also help support by, you know, they think of ways that, okay, can we save money here? Do we need to do this? Like, can we cut some costs here? So we have a small team at Ballard of about 10, but we're very open with them, and sometimes they come up with some of the best ideas that Corey and I didn't even think about. So.
Yeah, so I think when you're with somebody long enough, I think you know when they come home when they're not in the best mood. I'm pretty good at reading him whenever he's had a bad day. You know, it was a little bit harder for me before I got into business for myself to understand the day in and day out of what it takes to run a business. Employees, labor costs, just things you don't think about that now that I'm a business owner, I realize, oh, this may have been why you were so stressed out sometimes. So now that I can understand, and now that I'm in business for myself, I feel like I can understand the day in and day out, and I can understand how it might be where his stressors were coming from, where as just a spouse without being a business owner, maybe I didn't necessarily understand, or if he would say something about an employee, I'm like, well, why don't you just fire him? And now that I'm a business owner, I'm like, oh, well, you can't just fire somebody, right? Like you have to have somebody else to fill that person's shoes before you just let them go. So I think now that I'm a business owner, I understand more so that side of things that I didn't understand before. So if you have a spouse who's in the lawn care business and they come home and they're stressed out, if you're not in business, or maybe it's sometimes hard to understand where they're coming from, really just ask questions, right? Like marriage is really about communication, open communication, being upfront and vulnerable with each other and honest. And even though we as spouses may not necessarily always understand why they're so stressed out about this or why they're so stressed, just listen, I think would be my best advice as far as being married to somebody in the business. Just listen, and even though you may not understand, just try to sympathize with them, be there for encouragement. And it's hard as ladies, as women, we have a lot going on, right? Like you may be a stay-at-home mom where you have kids that you're dealing with all day, or you are in corporate America where you have a job and you have everyday stressors. But coming home and really just kind of being vulnerable with your spouse and just listening and opening and understanding would probably be my best advice.
So for Kyle, I know when he's stressed because he internalizes. And so when he's really quiet, I'm like, yeah, there's something going on right there.
It's when they're quiet.
So I'm like, okay, Kyle, what's going on? He's like, oh, this happened this day. And he's just like going off. I'm like, okay, I hear you. I was like, whenever there's a problem, there's a solution. I said, so let's figure out how we can tackle this. Because if you keep internalizing and let it ride, you're gonna erupt like a volcano. And it's not gonna be good, it's gonna be catastrophic. I said, so you're the leader, you're the owner of this business. I said, you gotta keep it together. And so I'm here to support you, and if we have to sit down and write it out, whatever it takes, because we're in this together.
So like Kyle, Ryan, he starts to shut down too. And if anybody knows him, he loves to talk. So, so I'll notice, he's getting quieter, he's not talking, and I'll ask him what's wrong, so I can try to help him with that also. So we'll sit down and, okay, let's write down what's going on. How can we fix this? Who can help us fix this? If it's something that we have to discuss, like with the office, we'll have a meeting and, figure it out. But that's one thing. If I notice he's not talking or he's not himself and he's starting to shut down, I can see the stress like building up. So I don't want him to explode. So we try to figure it out together, and I also see like, what can I do? Like, what can you give me that I can look into to help you get answers for this? So that way you can try to tackle that problem on your own.
Very good. That's very good. Was there ever a time when you thought the business would separate the two of you, and how did you overcome it?
I can't think of a time off the top of my head. I guess, we may not be that far into it. If there's something going on between him and I personally at home, we keep it there. We don't bring it to the office since we both do work together. We've got coworkers and we're not gonna stress them out with our own personal issues. So we try to keep things that happen at home, discuss that if we haven't figured it out there. At work, it's strictly work. We walk inside and put on a happy face even if we haven't had a good morning or night or whatever the case may be.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So with my job, I'm behind a computer all day long. So talking about screen time, it's a lot. And it's like 6 o'clock at night, I get home and he's like, what is for dinner? I know I spoil him, I cook every meal for him. But anyway. So I was like, yes, okay, I've made dinner. And then he's like, oh, okay, I need you to send out all these quotes. And I'm like, what? I have literally been sitting behind a computer for 9 hours, and you want me to look at a computer 3 more? Wait a minute. So we've had some contention about trying to separate home life from work life, and that's something we're working on. And we have a great support group. We have an excellent command center, and they have been such a blessing. Because when we were in Tupelo, he was working 8 days a week, and we know there are not 8 days in a week. And so I am so thankful that the environment we're in, the support group, command center, and what they do for us has helped us separate our personal life and work life.
Yeah, so with that question, one particular incident really comes to mind, and that was when I had just had our first. So as a new mom, you know, you're not sleeping, and you have this new baby that you're caring for, and you have a husband who's working, 27 hours a day, and we also know there's not 27 hours in a day. And so feeling like very alone in that, and me having to come to him, and it was hard for me because I felt like I wanted him home more. I needed help. It was my first baby. I didn't know what I was doing. But at the same time, I was trying to remind myself that he's providing for our family, and he is working to try to grow his business, and I needed to support him in that. So as a new mom, I was very torn with emotions of, hey, I need help. Like, this is new for me. I don't know what I'm doing. But then at the same time, having to realize, you know, that he's out there working those long hours for our family. So that was one, I feel like that was one, a breaking, I don't want to say a breaking point, but that was one of the trying times, I feel like, in our marriage that I can remember, where I had to go to him and say, listen, I'm trying to be supportive, and I understand that you're working all these long hours because you're trying to grow this business and provide for our family, and I understand that. However, at the same time, like, I need help. Like, I feel like I'm kind of doing this on my own. And so I think it was from there that we really had to find that work-life, home-life balance. And he tried to hire, you know, a few more people so he could, you know, get off a little bit earlier. But I didn't want to sound like a bad wife and say, hey, listen, I need you home more. Because I wanted to support him in his goals and his dreams. So that was kind of hard for me, and that was a really trying time of trying to find that work life, home life, you know, balance. But I think that incident in particular is really kind of what made us, you know, a turning point in our marriage, where we were like, okay, we need to be at home at a certain time. And it's kind of like when you own a business, like you've probably heard it before, you never really get a day off. Like when you own a business, like your phone is always blowing up, there's always emails, there's always, you know, something going on, and having to find that balance has definitely been something we continue to work on, for sure.
Well, I already shared my breaking point. So that happened, you know, and at the time I felt like I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it's like, and I have a lot of OCD, so I felt like I wasn't being like the wife I wanted to be, the mother I wanted to be. I wasn't doing good at work. It's like, how do you balance it all, right? And so when I did have that breaking point, he finally heard me, you guys, and we see a therapist. We see her once a month. She's been great for us. You know, it's we're not ashamed about it. We have tons of friends that go to her now. We actually have asked her for like a referral bonus. But it's just, you know, someone outside of your business and your home life to listen, you know, and sometimes we have hard, you know, sometimes I save my hard conversations for when we're in there, because it's a safe spot. She helps us work through it. She has been a complete lifesaver. We have a great support group of friends in our church that just really great mentors, I think. And yeah, I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that was our breaking point. And like I said, today he's totally different. It's, you know, at the time I felt like I was raising the kids, and I actually said that to him. I said, I feel like a single mom. You know, here I am working 80 hours a week in this business and trying to do the kids all by myself. You know, he gets home at night and he's ready to just relax, right? So after dinner, he just wants to veg and watch TV while the kids have activities, you know, they still need taken care of. And so I said that to him, and it was really a hard conversation to say, but I said, I feel like I am a single parent, and just because you are physically here doesn't mean that you are here for us. And that was hard to say, and it was hard for him to hear.
It was a few years ago. We had an ice storm in Tupelo, of all things. We lived at the bottom of a hill, and we had to walk up steps to get to the vehicle. Well, we were stuck in the house for an entire week, could not leave. Like, we had dogs, I took them out. I couldn't even walk down, I just gave up. I was like, I can't even walk down, so I just sat on my butt and just slid down to the bottom of the hill. So I was like, okay, well, this is how I'm gonna get in my house. Well, we're pretty active, and I was going stir crazy, and I was like, okay, so Kyle, you go on Zwift, and you do you're on the Wahoo Kicker. We've got our road bike attached. I was like, you do 10 miles, and then I'll do 10 miles. And then I hear this voice in the background. I'm like, who's this guy on the screen? And it was Mike Andes. I was like, what is this yellow shirt that he's wearing? You know? And so he's talking about expenditures, you know, should you go buy a new truck? And I'm like, this guy kind of reminds me of Dave, talking about finances. And we were just hooked. So for an entire week, we were biking indoors and watching every Mike Andes video out there.
That's awesome.
So yes, my husband listens to tons of podcasts. So he has always driven, funny story, he's always driven older vehicles, which, you know, I kind of make fun of him sometimes because I'm like, you know, if you would buy a little bit newer, then it may not break down on you as much. But that's a whole different story for another time. But he has this CRV that at the time, or it may still not, doesn't have a radio. And so he listens to podcasts all the time, and he actually has, I believe he has his employees listen to podcasts, and I think they have these morning meetings, and they talk about different podcasts or different books or, you know, things that they're reading. But it's funny because ever since I have been in business, he'll send me these text messages, and he's like, babe, you really need to listen to so-and-so. You really need to listen to so-and-so. And I'm like, I get it, and I would, but as a baker, I can't listen to somebody rambling on while I'm trying to do measurements for baking. He's like, well, you should just listen to it when you're driving, you know, down the road. And I'm like, with kids in the car? I'm like, no. So it's I need to be better. I need to be better about doing podcasts, but he does them. I need to be better. I don't.
And you're okay with him?
I'm okay with him doing them. Listen to all the podcasts you want.
Nice.
Shameless plug for the Green Grind. I get in trouble because I don't listen to every episode. I think Mike was on this week, if you guys want to check that one out. It was a good one. I did listen to that one. So Joe Rogan is what Corey listens to nonstop. If Joe Rogan promotes it, my husband's buying it. So he listens a lot when he's driving, and so if I'm in the car with him, like we had 2 hours here yesterday, we were listening to Joe Rogan. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. He enjoys it, and I'm totally okay with that. So.
And Kevin listens to a lot of podcasts and a lot of content, of course, everything from Mike to different ones that I don't know about. With that being said, I say if you can find knowledge in listening to somebody and gaining that knowledge, please do so. Me, myself, I love my quiet too much.
I literally drive in the car with that being on. He'll get in my car to drive and he's like, why is the radio not on? I'm like, I like the silence.
You wanted to share?
I did. So Ryan and I, we've been carpooling lately to work, and I do the same thing, like I don't have the radio on, so like halfway to work, he's like, why don't you have any music? And he'll put some, I'm like, this is my time to think. And like with the podcast too, you know, if we are all in the car with the kids, our youngest, she's like, I don't want to listen to that. And you know, our oldest is like, oh, I'll listen, you know, because she's curious what dad's doing, so she wants to know and she wants to be a part of it. So needless to say, he started bringing his AirPods with him a lot lately.
That is really good. Thank you for answering my question. And we may have time for a little more if we do have time. So let me see where we are. How do you ensure the relationship is not overshadowed by the business?
We're still working on that too. You know, we're still growing, and we plan to grow, you know, even more as we continue this journey. So we do try to make time for ourselves. We'll go out to eat. If we don't have the girls, that is, something that us two, we try to focus on each other. We went to the movies, so this past weekend we didn't have them. We went out to eat. It was nice, we didn't talk about the business, so it was great. But it's just still something that we are working on.
So Kyle and I, we have a mutual understanding that we are in a growth phase. I started a career late in life due to various things. I was married before to a Marine 10 years. Get a little personal here, sorry. And I put my life on hold. So at Kyle, he's been very supportive, but to prevent the job, the career, from overshadowing, sometimes you need to take a step back and you need to ask yourself, why am I here? What is my goal? So in the beginning, if you can work with your spouse, your significant other, to lay out your mission statement, your vision of where you see yourselves together, and then you constantly revisit that. That way you're reminded of, why are we making this sacrifice? And I just want to give this quote real quick. Success is never owned, it is rented, and rent is due every day. And so you just need to work with your spouse and try to find that balance.
So owning a business as well, I definitely understand the business side of things and trying to find, that balance and trying not to let work overshadow your marriage. Because at the end of the day, work is work, and yes, it's providing for you, but it's who you come home to. And if you don't have that support at home, or because of work, you have problems in your marriage, that's not going to make for a very good home life. It's not going to make for a very good work life. So you have to find that balance. One thing that my husband and I recently started doing was, because we have 2 young kids back home and we don't really have a big support system as far as childcare is concerned, we started doing date nights or date days while the kids are in school. So once a week or once every other week, on Wednesdays or Thursdays or whenever you can, just making time and really carving out time for just the 2 of you, where if you want to talk about work, you can talk about work, or you don't have to. You don't have to talk about work, you don't have to talk about kids, but you can just spend that time together. I've heard from multiple people, never stop dating your spouse. No matter how long you've been together, always make time for each other. And it's easier said than done, right? It's easy to be like, oh, never stop dating your spouse or make time for each other, but it's a lot harder to do than you would think. And so my best advice is carve out a date day. If you have young kids, do it while they're in daycare and go out to a date lunch. But your home life is just as important as your work life, because at the end of the day, no matter how successful you are, if you're not happy at home, it's not going to make for a very good, successful work life. So I feel like they go hand in hand, and just making time and finding that balance.
Yeah, 100%. And for us, it's been really helpful. It's non-negotiable. We go to lunch on Tuesdays. It's on our calendars. He has his Perfect Cup meetings in the morning, and then he comes and picks me up. I know I don't schedule any appointments that day. It's just kind of our non-negotiable. We're doing lunch every Tuesday. And then something that we tried to start last year, but then we had to let someone go, and so we kind of were all kind of hands on deck again, which we're going to get back to it this year now that we have our strong team in place. But we don't work on Fridays, and whether we do something with the kids that day, or they sometimes go to the school program, and we just spend the day together. And then the other thing that we've implemented in the last year is at night, I used to get in bed after Corey, he'd be watching TV, right? So now we do not watch TV at all during the week. We do, that's kind of the weekend thing for us. We don't watch TV during the week. Once we get up really early, like 4 in the morning. So once the kids keep asking for a later bedtime, I'm like, you can't have a later bedtime because that's my bedtime too. So we're in bed by 8:30 together every night, and we spend 30 to 45 minutes together talking about our day, talking about what we have going on for the next day, talking about things that we need to do, just having that connection time at the end of the day just to regroup. That's been really, really helpful for us too.
I was gonna say, yes, date nights, anytime you can spend time together, mini vacations even. I have really loved and appreciated when Kevin and I the children are old enough now to be able to stay a night or two by themselves, and just for us to spend just those quality hours together alone. And whether we're talking about some business or not, I think it's the thing of just being together and focusing on each other for those hours that we do have. And whether it's a couple minutes after we go to bed, or in the morning before he leaves to work, or whatever it may be, just to find those moments that work for us.
I'll ask a couple questions about things that are outside the marriage but still affect. Was there a time when you disagreed on how to handle an employee issue, and how did you resolve it?
I know for Kevin and I, no, there hasn't been, because he does all the hiring and firing for one, and if there ever is an issue like that, again, he's so communicative that I'll know about it and I can help him. And it's interesting when he is going through the process of maybe looking to hire somebody, and he has done an interview or whatever, and come home and he'll tell me about it, we'll talk about that person, and you can get this feeling even just from them talking about somebody, even though you never met them. And that same goes into as well firing. If somebody needs to be let go or something, then just listening. And again, I just think going with your gut feeling, and again, hearing what they have to say about that person.
Most of the time, have you never met the person?
Most of the time, no, I don't meet the, yes.
And then do you still feel like you can give input though?
I do feel, I feel like if you're, again, going with the gut feeling that and your instinct, and him talking about it and kind of reading him and how he's reading that person, you can know.
This happens often in our business. Not that Corey doesn't love on our employees, but I am very close to our employees. Corey, like I said, isn't required to be in the office for his job, and mine's gotten less and less. And we are in tight quarters right now. We're currently building a facility, but I share my office with our marketing director. And so I have become super close with some of our key employees, and Corey doesn't like that. And not that he's not close with them, but it's just a fine line of wanting to be, a friend and being an employer. Because if something happens bad, and then they think you're friends, the other thing, little things I'm like, oh, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, no one's working anyways, they're all taking PTO, maybe we should just let them have it, Of course, you can't do that, because then you set a precedence. I know we're a small team now, but as we grow, then next year, if you don't do that, how do you take things back, So I always want to give to our employees, and a lot of times Corey's we can't do that, because then we have to do it next year, and then as we grow, you can't take things back once you give them to them, because then it feels like they're being punished, right? So there is a balance there.
So I think when it comes to that question, being a business owner myself, it's definitely hard to, when you have an employee issue. I feel like I'm very new in business, so I'm still learning, right? Each and every day I'm learning about, P&Ls and employees and labor, and so I'm learning every day. But Brian has been in business before, Augusta for many, many years, so I feel like he's a lot more advanced in that area. So him being my spouse, business partner, and just somebody who's been in business, he's kind of I guess my mentor. So I come to him with a lot of employee issues, and he does the same. I think it's a little bit easier from the outside looking in. I think it's easier for him to give me advice about my employees and me to give him advice. But at the same time, he's not in the bakery and I'm not in the landscaping business. So it's hard because you get that outside perspective. But I remember one time, I can't remember what exactly the situation was, but I was having an issue with one of my employees at work, and he was, I had asked his advice, and I think sometimes as women and as wives, that we don't necessarily, I think he had given me a piece of advice that I think deep down I knew what the answer was, but I didn't really want to hear it. And I was like, well, you're not in the bakery, you don't know. And he's like, well, I might not be, but this is from what you're telling me, this is what I would, this is what I would do in that situation. And so sometimes it's hard because I think deep down I already knew the answer, but hearing it from somebody else was a little hard. But yeah, definitely, having that support from him and kind of being outside, giving each other advice outside of the business, can have its pros and cons, I guess.
So for us being a small, we are starting out small. We only have 2 employees, and I typically I'm more on the harsh end, and Kyle is on the softer side, because I'm like, they should be doing this. What's going on? Why have they not clocked out? And I'm like looking at logs, reports. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, Kyle's like, settle down. I'm like, they're all fired. I was like, it's a simple task. Get it together. And so trying to find that balance, because the guys that we have right now, they did not have a father figure. So they kind of look to Kyle as a father figure because they're learning a lot of skills that they did not know and was not exposed to in the home life. So taking them under our wing and mentoring them to be the best version of themselves, and just trying to find that fine line of grace. And that's something that we're continuing to learn. At what point can you just say, no, this is unacceptable? So that's something that, since we've been here at the summit, I've been making notes, and it's about our employees. It's about setting these goals for them to meet, and then making sure that they have what they need to be successful, because we don't want to leave them behind. So that's something that we're continuing to work on, is the whole hiring and firing situation.
So Ryan does most of the hiring and the firing. Jennifer and I, we worked together, and we actually hired 2 people last year. But we had a situation last year. We had a husband and a wife working for us. The wife worked with us in the office. The husband worked out in the field. And for months, there was, things that were happening that Ryan wasn't happy with, and we would discuss it. And, it got to a point where he was like, I've talked to him. It's still not changing. He continued to talk to him. It still wasn't changing. We had brought in another coworker to discuss the decision, to make sure that we were making the right one. The night before, we had we knew what we were doing. We had given multiple warnings, let them know, if it didn't change, we would have to make a change. And Ryan, after I had gone to sleep, he wrote a letter. And he read it to me the next morning, but I wasn't happy. I was like, no, this is not what we talked about. When I went to sleep, this was gonna be our decision. And we ended up letting them go. I would say we were nervous at first, but it was probably one of the best decisions that we made as a company. So that, I usually don't help, but that was something that I did step in. He asked for my advice, I gave it to him, and it's been really good.
And you feel like there was an impact from you saying something, the decision was a little different than it would have been without your input?
Yes, I think they probably still would have been with us, and Ryan still would not have been happy with how things were going. But I think between the other coworker and myself, explaining to him and, telling him well, do you remember this? Do you remember how it was handled? Or this happened, you weren't pleased with it, you didn't like the outcome. So that most of the time he does it.
That's good. Can I throw in another question of my own? What's your opinion on working with family?
Right now, I would say that I wouldn't let myself or Ryan hire anybody from our family. we have one person, which is Isaac. He's our brother-in-law. I think out of like my family, that's the only person that we'll ever allow. I just don't want to, cause tension, or, something happen at work and you have to explain to them like, hey, that's, this is how we're going to do it. I don't want conflict. Our families, they're our families. Isaac is our only exception.
So that's a tough question. My family was full of lady entrepreneurs, and my family had a catering business. So this is not directly related to lawn care, but it kind of gave me a sense of what it's like to work with family. It can cause tension. So, and it's not for everybody, because you kind of have to like compartmentalize. So I worked with my mom. Did I call her mom at work? No, I was like, hey Yvonne, what can I do for you? So I had to like make this mental separation, and that can put a lot of stress on you, because then at the end of the day, that's your family. So it can come at a cost. So it's just about, what are you willing to give and take? So that's a fine line.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. That's a tough one because, you hear of so many family-run businesses, right? Where it's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sisters, cousins. Like you see those businesses where it's completely family-owned, and I've always kind of thought to myself, like, man, that's a little hard. Like, because how do you separate work life, family life? You know what I mean? Especially if you have, two people in the business who are family and not necessarily getting along. That can cause for some big things, especially when you're all in a business together. A personal experience, again, not relating to lawn care, but whenever I was in corporate America, I was in sales, and so I sold scaffolding and insulation for my husband's cousin who owned the business. And long story short, it was literally the worst work experience I've ever had. And it was hard because I'm like, okay, well, this is my husband's cousin. We're newly married. I've just now gotten this family, and this is the worst job I've ever had. Like, so how do I go to my husband and say, hey, listen, I know this is family, but I can't do this anymore. And then worrying that, hey, if I leave, is this going to cause a rift between my husband and his family? And so being new to the family, I didn't necessarily want to cause that drama, but at the same time, like, I wasn't happy, and the job that I was doing at the time was had me traveling, times I shouldn't be traveling. And so that's a hard one. I feel like, you do have those companies where it's a lot of family and it works out great and it's a great dynamic. But I think going into a situation like that, you kind of have to really know that family member, and know what kind of work ethic, I would say, that they're going to have. But even then, situations are going to come up, and you just never know how that's going to be. So, yeah, that's a tricky one.
Corey's got 2 younger brothers. His brother Nick, I don't know, got fired from Perfect 14 or 15 times. So that is one that we would not consider to hire at Ballard. But his younger brother Austin was in the Coast Guard for 10 years. He's a great kid. I say kid, he's like 35. But he was just built different. The 2 brothers are totally different. We hired Austin. We had to meet with our team because Corey's other brother, Nick, is constantly coming into our warehouse. He just helps himself to stuff. He thinks he owns the place. Do you know who my brother is? And our employees are obviously irritated by that. And so we had to sit down with our team to make sure everyone was on the same page. When we hired Austin, we just said, listen, this is not Nick. He's going to be great. And he has been, he's like way beyond our expectations. And so he's been a great hire. Corey's dad actually builds all the easy gates for us. He comes in a couple times a week. And then my dad retired, and then he'll come in during our spring rush and help box products. So, and we're a small team. So, I mean, it works now. I don't know about the future. Austin, we're actually grooming him, Corey's brother, to hopefully take over one day. Corey would like to retire in the next 5 years. I'm not sure what he'll do with his time, what he'll start up again at that point, because that man won't sit still. So we'll see where it goes, but for now it's working.
I say keep them employees. Kevin's two brothers, one helps out part-time and the other one works full-time, and he's been a blessing, he really has. Again, I believe it depends on the personality as well. And our two sons help out. So it is a tough question right there with
So
that.
not management.
Not management, not co-owner, nothing, just plain employees. So when it comes to your sons, that's a whole new ballpark. You know, tough love needs to be given out. And with his brothers, I have told Kevin, please just try to keep them employees. Whatever situation comes up and you feel like you need to deal with it. And then outside of work, then they're your brothers. And let's just try to keep it that way.
This next question is a little bit different. We're kind of like in the middle of generations in the way that a lot of the kids that we know, they have homes that are split up. They have step brothers and sisters and step parents that they live with, as well as just the whole demographic of the way we live. You know, how do you divide everything up that we have to do at home? A lot of times you're both working. Sometimes the guy is staying home now and the wife is working. There's just nothing that is just status quo anymore, whether we like it or not, or the way, whatever, how we want it to be. So if you could share a little bit in all these situations, whatever you guys have got going on with the kids, if they're step kids or if you're the step parent, and then also the dividing and conquering of all the tasks now. So how did the two of you divide things up to keep the unity, but do you divide and conquer together successfully?
Well, as you know, Kevin and I are married. No, I'm not quite sure how to answer this question because we do conquer together. I feel like we are one with all of our decisions that we try to make with our business and family life. So we're fighting together to keep it all one and running smoothly as best for our own family and business.
Which we all know is not easy.
No.
I shared a little bit about this before, but you know, up until about 2 years ago, I feel like Corey and I were really living parallel lives. He stayed in his lane, I stayed in my lane, and there was no crossover, right? And at points in our marriage, when we were growing this business, it almost felt like we were just roommates, right? And once I kind of hit rock bottom and told him, I'm not one to openly share my feelings that much. I kind of suppress them and I just try to deal on my own. But once I was really, with the help of our counselor, which was a huge blessing, and some really strong, supportive friends, I was able to open up and tell him how I was feeling. And like I said, today it's just totally different. We divide and conquer. The kids are going opposite directions every single night of the week, you know, and that's why it's important for us the night before to just get our game plan for the next day. You know, who's taking Finley here, Levi's got to be here. Then we have our 19-year-old, you know, that comes over a couple times a week to have dinner with us. So the family time is super important to us, and we just divide and conquer. We do a really good job, and like I said, I feel like I've been very vulnerable up here because it's not always been easy, and I know it's hard, you guys, and like Corey said, it's supposed to be hard, but just hang on. And if you have mentors out there, you know, friends, or I mean, I have a woman that's probably 15 years older than I am, but I admire her as a person and the marriage that she leads. And when I'm struggling, I reach out to her, and she's always got great advice. And like I said, therapists, it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's helped Corey and I become closer than we've ever been before.
Yeah, so I think for us it's a little bit of both, conquering together and then dividing and conquering. I feel like when it comes to business, it's we conquer together, even though he has a business and I have a business. We're both very much, I feel like, involved in each other's businesses as far as the support aspect. When it comes to two young kids, it's definitely divide and conquer. With one, it's one. Whenever we had two, which is, we call him Baby Jack, he's our 16-month-old, and he is all over the place. So that's definitely, when it comes to bedtime and bath time, it's a divide and conquer kind of thing. There's two of them and two of us. But when it comes to business, I would say we conquer together. So really just having that support system at home. whatever he's going through, whatever I'm going through, and then just being able to give each other advice and support each other in that way.
Yes, I have to agree. It's kind of a combination of conquer together and then divide and conquer. In terms of divide and conquer, our careers are polar opposites. But when it's his business, we conquer together. And a couple of weeks ago, I was working from home. It was late hours. I'm on a conference call, and I'm like, what is that? Do I hear a vacuum cleaner? I looked out, and I was like, okay, maybe I should do more conference calls at night. So we've only been married for 2 years, and one of the things he told me, and I will never forget it, he says, all I've ever wanted to be was a wonderful husband. And I was like, that's amazing. And so he is definitely a helper, and we help each other out, and we like to divide and conquer together.
I would say most of the time we stick together, depending on what it is. If we need to split up, we will, we'll figure it out. And then we'll, group back together and, just depending on what happens. We've got our girls, we share custody with them. So we've got them every Thursday, every other weekend. So we do take turns. I'll be like, hey, can you go get the kids? Do you have anything going on? No? Okay, so he goes and picks them up. But we work together as a team with the girls. Family decisions, we definitely, talk about that, make those decisions together because those are important. Once we get into sports, our oldest starts softball. I'll take her to practice, or he'll take her to practice, and one of us will stay behind and cook dinner. Most of the time, I stay behind and cook dinner. Ryan and our youngest have, made a few dinners, and they haven't been bad, so I'm not going to complain about that. It was a little nervous. I'm like, make sure your dad goes and checks the oven. Remember it's on. So, but no, we try to make decisions together, and if we need to divide, we will.
Awesome. So we have a little bit more time, and I'm sure you guys knew we were going to be doing this, and some of you were probably really looking forward to it. And so I want to make sure that if there's a question that you're thinking of, that you're thinking, I just wish I could ask another business owner's wife, just to understand, do I need to understand him differently? If you'd like to ask that, I would love to have you have the chance here. They're all from different things in life that they're doing, as you can see. And so they have a lot of experience from different angles. And even the guys, if you have questions, feel free to ask.
First of all, thank you guys for sharing. I like seeing how, we're so different and yet we share a lot of the same values with family relationships. So my husband, we joined Augusta last year. We're pretty young, new into the landscape business. I wonder what your advice would be as far as, I kind of related, I think it was Mrs. Bakery, I'm sorry, I forget your name.
Yeah, Amber.
That shared, I want my husband to succeed, and I know it'll take long hours now, and then and he reminds me of that. Great. Yeah. We need to work so that the business will grow. But I do worry about certain habits. With working long hours, I don't want there to be bad habits that kind of continue with working.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a tough conversation to have with them, right? I totally understand that. And that was my biggest fear, was going to him and saying, I didn't want to sound unsupportive, but deep down I felt like I didn't want it to always be like this. So how do you approach a situation like that? And just open communication. I think how you, one thing for me is tone, right? So how do you approach it in a way of a concerning wife, a loving wife who's supportive, but also as somebody who, what does this mean for our future? And so I guess in that situation, the best advice I can give you would be just sit down with them and just kind of approach it and be like, hey, I just want you to know, before I even say this, I just want you to know that I'm super supportive, and I'm excited about this journey that you're going on. But I do worry a little bit about the long hours, and I know you tell me it's not always going to be like this, but it scares me a little bit. And just be vulnerable with them. And I think that was the tone that I had, and then just coming from a place of a new mom, and in coming from a place of I don't want to sound unsupportive, but so I think just sitting them down in a very safe space, a very loving and concerning tone, and just explaining to him, like, hey, listen, I am so excited for you, and I want to support you in this venture, and I want you to let me know how I can support you. But at the same time, can we find a little bit better of like a balance? Like when you come home, can we maybe cut quotes off at 7 o'clock at night and then have dinner as a family? And kind of maybe bring some suggestions to the table with the conversation, like some things that you would like to see change, or some things that you would like to see happen. Because no offense to men in general, but sometimes in those conversations, they're listening to you, but they don't necessarily have the answer. So if you come to them and you say, hey, listen, can maybe we do these things? Maybe he'll be a little bit more apt to you guys can kind of find that balance a little bit better. Did that help?
Yeah.
Answer? Okay.
I have a question. So several of you all are with Augusta Lawn Care now. My question is, with making the decision from transferring, I guess, did your significant others already have established lawn care businesses and then transferred over to Augusta Lawn Care? What was your involvement in that decision making? Were you apprehensive or supportive of it quickly? And then how has that transitioned from the previous business into Augusta Lawn Care? How has that transition felt or been for you guys? Because my husband has been a student of Mike Andy's on YouTube for years. I have been a legit slow burn to it. If we open it to it, we have a 1-year-old and an almost 4-year-old, and it's busy, but then also being reminded of like the growth, the little S10 2x6 is pushing a mower in the back to where he is now, and so we're investigating it, and that's why I'm here to kind of get a feel out for it, because we don't want to do it halfway, haphazardly. And so I am curious, y'all's vantage point within knowing your relationships, the previous business into Augusta Lawn Care, how that's opened things up, and your advice to me as someone who's on the fence, who hasn't been a student of this, but I will be involved with the business if we move forward. Anything you have to say about
Yeah, so I've definitely been in your shoes. So like I said, my husband had a business, Fine Lines Landscaping, before he, bought into the franchise. And as, and of course, we talked about the decision, and he had actually come to a conference before he made the conversation. So this is what you're doing, coming to the conference before. So that's what he did. And lucky enough, you're here. I didn't come.
Okay.
Because I was at home with kids. So I think it's great that you're here, because you're getting to be you're gaining that acknowledgement, right, of learning more about it before you guys make the decision. I think that's a great thing to do. That's exactly what my husband did. And then when he came home, he was pumped. He was so excited. He had been a follower of Mike Andy's, and so when he came home, and he was so excited, and seeing almost like a sense of relief of like, hey, there's something bigger, there's something better out there, and he's always wanted that for his business. He's always wanted to grow, always wanted to be bigger. My husband we're very opposite in the fact that my husband is a very big picture guy. Like he's like, in 5 years, and I'm like, tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? Like I'm not, and bless is one of the many reasons I love him, right? He's a dreamer, he's a doer. I'm very opposite. I'm a little bit more of a, are we sure? Can we afford that? Can we, what's the long-term investment gonna be? But honestly, like you heard me say before, buying into the franchise of Augusta Lawn Care was and will forever be the best decision that I think obviously he made, but I felt like I supported him in. He's got the help, he's got the knowledge, the learning and all the knowledge that he has now. So yeah, I think it's great that you're here, and I have been in your shoes, and definitely the best decision we made.
Awesome.
Brittany, could you speak to that? Yeah, you go ahead, Megan.
Okay. Yes, so Kyle had Turner Lawn Care for 7 years. And again, like I said, he was working 7 days a week. And it was just not sustainable. And he would not delegate, he would not hire. And I'm like, you gotta hire. So when the opportunity came and my job moved us to Huntsville, he's like, do I do Turner Lawn Care in Huntsville or do I do Augusta Lawn Care in Huntsville? So we went to this thing called GIE Expo. But before that, that's when we were stuck in the house for a week. We were riding our bikes because we couldn't leave, and all we watched was Mike Andes for 7 days straight. And I was like, we've got to go to the Augusta Lawn Care booth because we're going to meet a celebrity. And so, we were so excited, and I'll never forget, I talked to Liz, and it was just an instant connection. When you talk about being at the right place at the right time, and what Augusta Lawn Care offers, I was like, I am sold. It's a family, but it's also a support group so that you can reach your maximum potential. And there is a Facebook group called Augusta Nation, and I love seeing all the commentary, Mike's mastermind. I mean, there's so much out there, and it is definitely the best decision that we ever made, and I would make it over and over again. And we made that decision together. We were kind of apprehensive, but after we met them in person and just had a deeper knowledge and understanding of what the culture is about making the landscaping business a more professional type of business, I was like, I'm sold. And it's been fantastic ever since.
I'll let Brittany answer this, and then we'll have time for one more question.
I have to agree with Megan and Amber. Before Augusta Lawn Care, Ryan had his own company that he started from the ground up. I mean, he just started out with a little trailer and a push mower and a weed eater and a blower, and he was off. And we grew and we grew and we grew, and before we converted over to Augusta Lawn Care, you know, we had grown a lot, and I was nervous at first. You know, I didn't know much about it. I know that Ryan had watched Mike on YouTube. He'd done a lot of research. He'd mentioned it before, and then he finally came to me and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna make a switch." And I was a little nervous. His company he had before, it was a little bittersweet, you know. It's something that he'd worked hard for, and I was like, are you sure, like, you want to change the name? Like, you know, you're established, people know you. But I would say if we could do it again, we will. It's been a great decision for him and I. So.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah. Anybody else? One last question, desperately.
I myself, my boyfriend has his landscape business. Last year I started my own business as a house cleaning for Airbnbs. I'm 24, he's 27, so we are pretty young. In regards of you guys, when did were you always in the same page with your husband or your significant other in regards of like business wise? And if so, did you put like being a mom or stuff like that on hold, or did you plan on having kids? The reason why I ask is because I come from a family that, for example, my mom had us at 18. So then my grandma had kids, you know, when she was 17, 18. So young moms, mine was that I wanted to have kids at a really young age. My boyfriend is more, no, I want to have kids until like I'm 35 or 40 once I have like an established business, stuff like that. So it took me a while to kind of get caught up with that. I don't know if you guys planned on having a family, or did you want to have like a more established, especially for you, Amber. I know you said you started your business later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really stressful. Like I've come to notice that, you know, you spend late nights, you don't have times, you don't have weekends.
Yeah.
And then when you're with your, you know, boyfriend, husband, that's all really what we talk about. So did you guys have a timeline, or was it more of when it happens, it happens?
So for me, I'm 2 years older than my husband. And so I think as women, we kind of have like this internal time clock of like, where our parents had us at this age, and so we need to have kids by this age. And I think the world today is very different, right? Like you see women investing more in their career and in themselves before they get married and then start a family. So for me, I didn't have my first until 33. We got married, but I got married later. So we got married at 29, we were married for a couple years, and then I had my first at 33. But to answer that question, I always knew that I wanted kids, but my husband was always at a point where, well, we need to be financially set. We need to have this, this, and this in the bank. And for me, I think as a woman, my go-to defense, I think, was, well, if we wait until we have enough money, we'll never have kids, right? You never have enough money. Something always comes up, no matter how much you have in savings. And so that was, the decision to have kids was one of the hardest decisions that we made. And it wasn't because I didn't want them, because I knew that I did. It was a matter of, he knew that once we had kids, it would change things. It would change the amount of work time that we had. We were both into bodybuilding at the time, so it would change, as far as our gym time. So many things change when you have kids. It's the biggest blessing, right, that you will ever have. But it does change things. And as a mom and as a wife, you definitely give. And when you have kids, you have less time for yourself. Finding that the time frame, I would say don't put a time frame on it. Don't put it, when you're ready, you're ready. There's never going to be a good time to have kids, is I guess what would be my advice to you. I don't know if you guys agree or.
So I don't have any children. I am 37. And I went to my annual visit and my doctor literally said TikTok. And I was like, TikTok what? He was like, you can't have children forever. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And so I'm opposite. I have been such a career goal woman. I was like, I am not a woman unless I have a career. And I felt like it's a battle. It's like, how can I be a powerful, successful woman, but also make the time for family and children? So that is actually a conversation that Kyle and I are working on right now. It's like, he is just started Augusta Lawn Care. I just started a new career. I bought into a software development company that I'm a part owner in. And so it's like, do I do it? And I was like, no, let's do it. I mean, we don't have a date, but it's like now or never. But that's because I'm older. It just depends on where you are in your life. So
yeah, you're still young. You have time. You have time.
That's right. I'm not that young. So,
So we're out of time, but did you guys enjoy this? Yeah. Is something you want to do again? Very gracious. They came a little bit reluctantly, but I hope they feel like their time was of value today. Thank you everyone so much. We appreciate it.